The year was 2157. Humanity had spread across the inner solar system, building homes on Mars, Venus, and several moons of Jupiter. The United Earth Space Command protected these colonies with a strong fleet of ships. Commander Alan Wright sat in his chair on the bridge of the UESC battlecruiser Defiant. His ship was on a routine patrol through the asteroid belt. The bridge was quiet, with only the soft peeps of computers breaking the silence. "Commander, I'm picking up something strange," said Officer Kevin Barnes, his eyes fixed on the sensor display. 3 large objects just appeared near Neptune. Alan leaned forward in his chair. "Can you identify them?" "No, sir. They don't match any known signatures. They're big, though. Really big." Lieutenant Susan Miller, the communications officer, turned from her station. Her face showed concern. "Sir, they're not responding to any of our hailing frequencies." "Keep trying," Alan ordered. He turned to his tactical officer. "Gary, what's your assessment?" Gary Peterson studied his screens carefully. "They're moving in a formation, sir. That suggests intelligence. And their speed. They're moving faster than any of our ships could." The bridge crew worked in tense silence for the next hour as the unknown vessels moved steadily toward the inner solar system. Finally, Susan's console lit up. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission." "On screen," Alan said, standing up from his chair. The main view screen flickered to life. The image showed a being unlike any human had ever seen. It had dark purple skin, 4 yellow eyes, and what looked like natural armor plating across its shoulders and head. "Humans," the alien said, its voice deep and rasping. "I am War Leader Vork of the Draxian Imperium. Your solar system is now under our control." Alan kept his face neutral despite his shock. "This is Commander Alan Wright of the United Earth Space Command. We welcome peaceful contact with other species, but we do not recognize your claim to our system." The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. "Submit or perish. Those are your only options. The Draxian Imperium has conquered hundreds of worlds. None have successfully resisted." The transmission cut off abruptly. "Send everything to Earth Command immediately," Alan ordered. "And get me a direct line to Admiral Daniels." Within hours, the news spread throughout human space. The Defiant tracked the alien vessels as they moved past Uranus toward Saturn. In his quarters, Alan studied the alien's message again. Something about the war leader's confidence bothered him. The aliens clearly expected immediate surrender. "They don't know humans very well," he mumbled to himself. 3 days later, Alan stood in a virtual conference with leaders from across human space. Admiral John Daniels, a stern man with gray hair, addressed the gathering. "The Draxians have sent a small delegation to Earth for negotiations," the Admiral explained. "Meanwhile, I'm ordering all UESC ships to maintain distance, but continue observation." "Sir," Alan said, "request permission to perform passive scans of their technology." The Admiral nodded. "Granted, but nothing that could be detected." Over the next week, the Defiant carefully gathered data on the Draxian ships. Gary analyzed the information with growing excitement. "Commander, their shields operate on predictable frequencies. And their weapons, while powerful, have significant recharge times." Alan nodded slowly. "So they're strong, but not unbeatable." "Exactly, sir." When the communication came from Earth, it was just as Alan expected. The Draxians had delivered an ultimatum. "Surrender within 72 hours or face extinction. Send a message to all UESC ships," Alan told Susan. Code phrase, "Remember Thermobila." Susan smiled as she transmitted the ancient reference to a small force standing against a much larger one. As the Defiant moved to its assigned position behind Mars, Alan looked out at the stars. The Draxians thought humans would submit without a fight. They were about to learn their mistake. The meeting room in Geneva was silent as Ambassador Krell of the Draxian Imperium entered. His purple skin gleamed under the lights, and his 4 yellow eyes scanned the room with obvious contempt. Behind him walked 2 guards, each carrying weapons that looked like they were part of their bodies. Jack Wilson, the Secretary General of the United Nations, stood to greet them. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador. We hope these talks will lead to peaceful." "There will be no peace except through submission," Krell interrupted. His voice was harsh and mechanical through the translator. "The Draxian Imperium does not negotiate with lesser species." Dr. Lisa Jackson, Earth's leading xenobiologist, watched carefully from her seat at the table. Every movement the Draxians made told her something about them. They were predators, she could see that clearly. Their bodies were built for hunting, for dominating. "Perhaps you could tell us more about your Imperium," Lisa suggested, keeping her voice friendly. "We know so little about your people." Krell seemed pleased by the question. "The Draxian Imperium spans 3 arms of the galaxy. We have conquered 42 species and rule over 700 worlds. And all these species surrendered without fighting?" asked General Peter Hudson, his face skeptical. "Of course," Krell said with a sound like grinding stones that might have been laughter. "None were foolish enough to resist once they saw our might. Those few who tried were made examples of." While the meeting continued in Geneva, Admiral John Daniels watched from a secure facility in orbit. Next to him, technicians analyzed data being secretly collected from the Draxian ships. "What have we got?" Daniels asked. Chief Engineer Olivia Martinez pointed to a display. "Their technology is advanced, sir, but not magical. Their ships use a form of fusion power we understand in theory. Their weapons are powerful, but have clear recharge cycles." "Weaknesses?" "Several potential ones," Olivia said. "They rely heavily on a central power distribution system. If that could be disrupted." Daniels nodded. "Keep analyzing, and make sure this information is shared with all command posts." Back in Geneva, the meeting was ending. Krell stood with a fluid motion that reminded Lisa of a cobra rising. "You have 72 hours to prepare your surrender documents," he announced. "The ceremony will take place here, with all your world leaders present. Any resistance will result in the immediate destruction of your largest cities as a demonstration." After the Draxians left, Lisa joined the human leaders in an emergency session. "They're overconfident," she explained. "Everything about their posture, their speech patterns, suggests they've never faced serious resistance before." "Can we beat them?" asked Secretary Wilson. General Hudson looked at the preliminary reports from Admiral Daniels. "Maybe. They're strong, but they've revealed a lot just by being here. They expect an easy victory, which means they might not be prepared for a real fight." Across the solar system, humanity began to prepare. On Mars, Olivia Martinez worked with her team to modify the planetary defense grid. In orbit around Jupiter, hidden weapons platforms powered up under Commander Ethan Russell's direction. On the lunar base, Colonel Frank Collins activated the Broken Arrow Protocol, revealing military installations that had been kept secret even from most of Earth's governments. The Draxians, monitoring from their ships, noticed the increased activity but misinterpreted it. To them, it looked like the frantic, disorganized preparations of a frightened species. In his quarters aboard the flagship, War Leader Vork reviewed the reports with satisfaction. "They scurry about like prey animals," he told his officers. "Soon they will kneel before us, as all others have." His second-in-command looked uncertain. "Some of their transmissions suggest they might resist." Vork dismissed this with a wave. "Impossible. No species has ever chosen destruction over submission. They posture now, but when the deadline comes, they will surrender." As the deadline approached, Admiral Daniels prepared humanity's formal response to the Draxian ultimatum. It was brief, carefully worded, and when Ambassador Krell received it, he could not believe what he was reading. Humanity had said no. War Leader Vork crushed the communication device in his hand. The screen shattered, cutting his purple skin. He ignored the pain. They refused to surrender. He growled at his officers. "These humans dare to defy the Imperium." His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Grex, stepped forward carefully. It appears so, War Leader. Their message was quite clear. Prepare the fleet for attack, Vork ordered. We will show them what happens to those who resist. Across the solar system, humanity worked with a unity never before seen in its history. Old enemies became allies against this new threat. On Mars, Chief Engineer Olivia Martinez hadn't slept in 30 hours. Her team worked frantically to modify the planet's defense grid. Try it now, she told her assistant, wiping sweat from her forehead. The power levels on the display jumped to twice their previous reading. Olivia smiled for the first time in days. Send word to Admiral Daniels, she said. The Mars defense grid is ready and at double capacity. In orbit around Jupiter, Commander Ethan Russell floated inside a massive structure that had been disguised as a research station for years. Around him, technicians activated weapons systems that few people knew existed. Status report, he called. All systems green, replied his weapons officer. The pulse cannons are charged and targeting systems are online. Ethan nodded. Maintain silent running. No transmissions until we get the signal. On Earth, Admiral John Daniels stood before the combined military leaders of humanity in a secure bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains. The Draxians expect us to be divided, he told them. They believe we will fight among ourselves or surrender out of fear. They do not understand human nature. He brought up a holographic display of the solar system, showing the positions of Earth's forces. We have hidden assets throughout the system. The Draxians see only our obvious defenses. When they attack, they will find we are far from helpless. In Geneva, Dr. Lisa Jackson met with Krell for what would be their final conversation before war. Is there no room for compromise? She asked the Draxian ambassador. No possibility of peaceful coexistence. Krell's 4 eyes fixed on her with cold hatred. The strong rule. The weak serve. This is the natural order. Your resistance is not just futile, it is unnatural. Lisa studied him with scientific interest. You really believe that, don't you? You cannot conceive of a species choosing to fight rather than submit. Because it is madness, Krell said. You cannot win. Perhaps, Lisa replied calmly, but that has never stopped humans from trying. As the deadline passed, the Draxian fleet began to move. Their massive warships formed attack formations, preparing to strike Earth's orbital defenses. On the bridge of the UESC Defiant, Commander Alan Wright received new orders from Admiral Daniels. Fall back to defensive position Bravo, he told his crew. Maintain communications silence except for emergency protocols. Lieutenant Susan Miller looked up from her station. They'll think we're retreating out of fear. Alan nodded. That's exactly what we want them to think. In orbit around Earth, the visible human defenses appeared minimal. A few space stations and a small fleet of warships. The Draxians approached with confidence, certain of an easy victory. On his flagship, War Leader Vork watched the human forces with satisfaction. They are even weaker than we thought. This will be over quickly. Sir, said one of his officers, some of their ships are moving behind their moon. Hiding. Vork sneered. Prepare to fire on their orbital stations. Let's show them the price of defiance. What the Draxians couldn't see were the hundreds of stealth satellites that had been quietly positioned around Earth's orbit. Nor could they detect the hidden fleet waiting behind the moon, weapons powered down to avoid detection. As the Draxian ships moved into attack position, a message flashed across all human military channels. Operation Thunderclap is a go. All units prepare for immediate action. The trap was set. Humanity was ready. War Leader Vork stood tall on the bridge of his flagship. His yellow eyes focused on the blue planet ahead. Begin the attack, he ordered. Target their orbital defenses first. Bright beams of energy shot from the Draxian ships. 2 human space stations exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Vork watched with satisfaction as debris scattered across Earth's orbit. Their defenses are pathetic, he said to Sub-Commander Grex. As expected. Sir, said the sensor officer, our scans show unusual activity behind their moon. Vork dismissed the concern with a wave. Probably civilian ships hiding. Ignore them. Continue the attack. In a hidden command center beneath the lunar surface, Captain Samantha Kelly watched the Draxian ships on her display. The enemy had destroyed 2 stations, empty decoys that had been evacuated days ago. "They're in position," reported her tactical officer. "All 3 main vessels are within the grid." Samantha took a deep breath. Activate Operation Thunderclap. Across Earth's orbit, hundreds of stealth satellites simultaneously powered up. Before the Draxians could react, the satellites fired electromagnetic pulse weapons directly at the 2 smaller enemy destroyers. On his ship, Vork stumbled as the lights flickered. "What's happening?" he demanded. "Our shields are failing," shouted his engineer. "Some kind of pulse weapon." From behind Earth's moon, a fleet of UESC warships suddenly appeared. Leading them was the destroyer Persistence under Captain Daniel Cooper's command. "All ships target the designated weak points," Daniel ordered. "Fire when ready." The human fleet launched a coordinated attack. Missiles and energy beams struck the Draxian ships precisely where their shields had failed. In the Jupiter orbit, Commander Ethan Russell received the signal he'd been waiting for. "Activate the pulse cannons," he ordered. Massive energy beams fired from the hidden weapons platforms around Jupiter. The beams took 30 seconds to reach the battle near Earth, but when they hit, they struck the largest Draxian ship with devastating force. War Leader Vork held onto his command chair as his flagship shook violently. "Impossible," he shouted as systems failed around him. "These primitives couldn't have weapons like this." "We've lost engines," reported his engineer. "Shield generators are at 20%. The other destroyers are reporting critical damage," added his communications officer. "Commander Zale requests permission to retreat." Vork slammed his fist into the arm of his chair. "Retreat? From these humans?" But another blast rocked his ship, and reality became impossible to deny. "Fall back to Saturn's orbit," he ordered, hatred burning in his eyes. "We will regroup and return with our full fleet." On the Persistence, Captain Daniel Cooper watched as the damaged Draxian ships retreated. "Should we pursue?" asked his first officer. Daniel shook his head. "No. We've accomplished our mission. Let them run." Admiral Daniels addressed all human forces from his command center. "Well done, everyone. The first battle goes to humanity. But this war is just beginning." In the wreckage of the battle, a small team led by Major Greg Howard approached one of the disabled Draxian destroyers in specialized boarding craft. "Team Alpha in position," Greg reported. "Beginning boarding operation." "Proceed with caution," Admiral Daniels replied. "We need that ship intact." As the human forces celebrated their first victory, War Leader Vork nursed his wounded pride in the shadow of Saturn. He had underestimated these humans, but he wouldn't make that mistake again. "Send word to the homeworld," he told Sub-Commander Grex. "Request reinforcements. All available ships." "Is that necessary, War Leader?" Grex asked cautiously. "It's just one primitive world." Vork turned to his second-in-command, his eyes cold. "These humans are not like the others we've conquered. They fight back. They have teeth." Little did he know that humans had more than teeth. They had already begun studying the damaged Draxian ship they captured, unlocking secrets that would change the course of the war. Dr. Paul Edwards hadn't slept in 3 days. His eyes were red as he studied the damaged Draxian ship. Around him, a team of scientists worked on different parts of the alien vessel. "I think I found something," he called out, his voice excited despite his exhaustion. Admiral Daniels walked over. "What is it?" Paul pointed to a complex diagram on his screen. "Their power distribution system. It's vulnerable to a specific radiation frequency. If we can hit it with enough energy at this frequency, we could disable their ships without destroying them." Admiral Daniels smiled for the first time in days. "Can we modify our weapons to use this?" "Yes," Paul said. "I'm already working with the engineering team." Near Saturn, War Leader Vork watched as reinforcements arrived from deep space. 6 more Draxian warships joined his damaged fleet. "The humans will pay for their resistance," he told his officers. "We will crush them completely." Sub-Commander Grex looked concerned. "War leader, perhaps we should study their tactics more carefully. They surprised us once." "They got lucky," Vork shouted, slamming his fist down. "Their primitive technology cannot stand against our full might." On Earth, Admiral Daniels met with his top commanders. The holographic display showed the growing Draxian fleet. "They're preparing for a full-scale invasion," he explained. "But thanks to Dr. Edwards, we have a plan. Operation Thunderstrike is now authorized." Captain Daniel Cooper of the Persistence received his orders with a grim nod. "It's risky, Admiral." "All war is risk, Captain. But sitting back and waiting for them would be a bigger one." In the asteroid belt, Lieutenant Nickel Warren led a squadron of small, agile fighters through training exercises. The Draxians had dismissed these craft as non-threats during the first battle. "Remember," she told her pilots, "their tracking systems aren't designed for targets as small as our ships. Stay in their blind spots and deliver your payloads precisely." Each fighter carried specially designed warheads based on Dr. Edwards' discovery. 3 days later, the Draxian fleet began its advance toward Earth. 9 massive warships moved in tight formation, their weapons fully charged. War leader Vork stood confidently on his bridge. "No surprises this time. We know their tricks now." What he didn't know was that humanity had many more tricks to show. As the Draxian fleet passed Mars, they detected the UESC fleet waiting for them. Vork smiled at what appeared to be an easy target. "They meet us in open space. Fools." He ordered his ships to form attack positions. But just as the Draxians moved to engage, Lieutenant Warren's fighters emerged from hiding places among the asteroids. The small ships darted between the massive Draxian vessels, too quick and small for the alien targeting systems. "What are they doing?" Vork demanded as alarms blared across his ship. Each fighter launched their special warheads at precise points on the Draxian ships. The warheads didn't explode. Instead, they emitted powerful bursts of radiation at the exact frequency Dr. Edwards had identified. Throughout the Draxian fleet, power systems began to fail. Shields flickered and died. Weapons went offline. "Impossible," Vork screamed as his own flagship lost power. The main UESC fleet, led by the Persistence, moved in for the killing blow. Their weapons had been modified to exploit the same weakness. In the confusion, Major Greg Howard led his Special Forces team to board the Draxian command vessel. Fighting through the ship's corridors, they'd reached the central computer core. "We're in position," Greg reported as his team secured the room. "Beginning data download now." With their power systems crippled and humans boarding their ships, the Draxian fleet fell into chaos. 3 vessels were completely disabled. 2 more suffered critical damage. War leader Vork, seeing his grand invasion crumble around him, gave an order he never thought he would give. "Retreat," he said, his voice hollow. "All ships, retreat to Neptune's orbit." As the remaining Draxian ships fled, humanity had gained something even more valuable than victory: access to the Draxian battle networks and communication systems. The tide of war had turned decisively. Dr. Catherine Powell stared at the screen in disbelief. As head of the analysis team studying the Draxian data networks, she had expected to find advanced technology and military secrets. What she found instead was something far more surprising. "Admiral, you need to see this," she said when Admiral Daniels entered the secure lab. She brought up a series of star charts showing Draxian territory. "This is their empire," she explained. "But look at these markers. These are the species they've conquered." Admiral Daniels studied the display. "There are fewer than they claimed." "Much fewer," Catherine agreed. "And none of them had achieved spaceflight. The Draxians have been exaggerating their power. They've primarily focused on primitive worlds that couldn't fight back." In another section of the lab, Major Greg Howard reviewed Draxian military records with his team. "Their tactics never evolved," he reported to Admiral Daniels. They've fought the same way for centuries because they've never needed to adapt. No one ever put up a real fight before. This information changed everything. Humanity wasn't facing an unbeatable empire. They were facing bullies who had never been challenged. On the Defiant, Commander Alan Wright received new orders from Admiral Daniels. His ship would join the fleet gathering near Saturn for what might be the final battle of the war. The Draxians have regrouped near Neptune, he told his crew. Intelligence suggests they're preparing for one last attack. Lieutenant Susan Miller looked up from her station. Do they still think they can win? Pride, Alan replied. They can't accept defeat by a species they considered inferior. War Leader Vork faced growing dissent among his officers. Sub-Commander Grext and others questioned his leadership after multiple defeats. These humans have technologies we didn't anticipate, Grex argued during a heated meeting. Perhaps we should consider negotiation. Negotiate? With primitives. Vork's anger filled the room. The Imperium does not negotiate. We will not be the first leaders to return home in defeat. But doubt had taken root among his officers. They had never failed to conquer a world before. The final battle took place in the rings of Saturn. The remaining Draxian ships, 7 in total, faced a human fleet that now included vessels from Mars, Venus, and the outer colonies. Humanity had united completely against the alien threat. Admiral Daniels, commanding from the flagship Unity, opened a channel to the Draxian command ship. This is Admiral John Daniels of the United Earth Space Command. We offer you one chance to surrender. Your ships are damaged, and you're outnumbered. There's no need for further bloodshed. On his bridge, War Leader Vork received the message with fury. They dare to offer us mercy. All ships, attack formation. We will die with honor rather than live with shame. But not all his officers shared his view. 2 Draxian vessels broke formation, moving away from the battle line. Cowards, Vork screamed. Destroy them. In the chaos that followed, the Draxian fleet turned against itself. Ships fired on their own allies while the human fleet watched in silence. Admiral Daniels gave the order. All ships target the Draxian flagship but avoid destroying it. Capture is our priority. The battle was decisive but brief. With precision strikes using Dr. Edwards' radiation weapons, the human fleet disabled the Draxian vessels one by one. Vork's flagship, fighting to the end, finally went dark as its power systems failed completely. Boarding teams led by Major Howard secured the Draxian command ship. War Leader Vork was found in his command center, surrounded by the bodies of loyal officers who had chosen death over surrender. When they brought Vork before Admiral Daniels, the Draxian leader could not meet the human's eyes. "Why do you not kill me?" he asked. "Because that's not who we are," Daniels replied simply. The war was over. Humanity had won. 6 months after the Draxian defeat, Earth and its colonies buzzed with activity. The alien technology, once studied and understood, had accelerated human development by decades. In the main shipyard orbiting Mars, Commander Alan Wright walked through the corridors of a new vessel. The UESC Horizon was humanity's first ship designed for travel beyond the solar system. It incorporated the best of human innovation and Draxian technology. "She's beautiful," said Susan Miller, now promoted to first officer, as she joined him on the observation deck. "That she is," Alan agreed. "And in 2 days, she'll take us farther than any human has gone before." The Horizon's mission was both diplomatic and exploratory. Using star charts taken from Draxian databases, they would visit worlds previously terrorized by the Imperium. On Earth, the United Nations had formed a new body called the Interstellar Diplomatic Corps. Dr. Lisa Jackson led the organization, working to establish peaceful contact with alien civilizations. "We need to show the galaxy that not all spacefaring races are conquerors," she explained during the Horizon's commissioning ceremony. "Humanity can be a force for peace." The Draxian prisoners, including Ambassador Krell, had been treated with respect despite their earlier threats. Most were surprised by this treatment, having expected execution or slavery. Krell, once so dismissive of humans, had spent months studying them. Their compassion confused him at first, but gradually he began to understand their strength came from more than just weapons. In Geneva, 6 months to the day after the Draxians had delivered their ultimatum, Krell addressed the United Nations. "I came to this world believing my people were superior in every way," he said, his voice now translated without the harsh mechanical tone. "I was wrong. Your species possesses something rare in the galaxy: unity in diversity." He looked around the room at representatives from nations that had been enemies for centuries before coming together against the Draxian threat. "You fight fiercely when threatened, but you choose peace when possible. This is not weakness, as I once believed. It is a different kind of strength." As Krell spoke, the Horizon prepared for departure. Its crew included humans from every continent, and even a few Draxians who had chosen to work with their former enemies. Alan addressed his crew from the command center. "Our mission is not conquest. We go as explorers and liberators, offering friendship to those who want it, and warning those who might threaten Earth that humanity is not to be underestimated." The ship's massive engines powered up, using principles that human scientists had only theorized about before studying Draxian technology. On Earth, Admiral Daniels watched the launch from his office. On his desk sat a small piece of Draxian armor, a reminder of their victory and the challenges that might still lie ahead. "Good luck, Horizon," he said softly as the ship prepared to make its first faster-than-light jump. In the darkness of space, the Horizon's engines flared to life. The ship disappeared in a flash of blue light, carrying humanity's representatives to distant stars. The Draxian Imperium had believed humans would submit without a fight, like all the other species they had encountered. Their mistake had not only cost them a war, but had propelled humanity onto the galactic stage centuries earlier than might have happened naturally. As the Horizon traveled to its first destination, the crew couldn't know what they would find. But they carried with them something the Draxians had never understood: the human spirit of exploration, adaptation, and determination. On the bridge, Alan looked out at the stars streaking past the view screen. "New worlds," he said to Susan. "New civilizations." She smiled. "And they'll all learn what the Draxians discovered the hard way." "What's that?" "Never underestimate humanity."